All right, Jesse, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for making me feel welcome. You have a lovely campus. So, my name is Sarah, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I work in traditional media. I work with paper. Like most artists, though, I use digital tools to help my practice, and that's why Jesse asked me to speak to you today. So I know there's a wide variety of folks in the room. Some of you are artists, musicians, designers, coders, and a lot of you have nothing to do with that world, but you love those folks. Regardless of what your discipline is, I think a lot of what I'm going to be talking about can relate. So, even if you do math or biology, I think you'll find something useful here. Ooh.
I think you just hit the arrow.
I got it. It's okay. Just needed to adjust. Yeah. Oh, I see what. Okay. Okay, so here's how it's going to go. First, I'm going to talk about my art, and then I'm going to talk about some sort of digital strategies and tools that artists commonly use. I'm going to talk a little bit about copyright briefly, and then at the very end, I'm going to share some of the really cool crowdsourced tools that you all helped to put together. So this print is called Hearth. It's a screen print, a very basic screen printing process. And I was inspired by the gentle glow of street ATM machines with this piece. There's, fire burning inside the ATM. When you use the standalone ATM machines at nighttime, you sort of like hover around it. And there's this glow basking in your face. That's where this came from. And the implication being that your money is burning inside. This is called This Terminal Accepts Deposits. It's another screen print. In case you didn't notice, it's a mashup of an ATM machine and a porta potty. And there's a guy in there making a deposit right now. This is ATM Outhouse, further equating people's experience of banking with feces. This is Little Brown Barf Bag. It's a screen print as well. It looks similar to the ubiquitous Bloomingdale's department store bag. It pokes fun at the notion that disposable shopping bags have become status symbols to the point of becoming a fashion accessory. So I live in New York, and it's not uncommon for me to see people on the subway carrying the regular stuff in, fancy department store shopping bags. It's ridiculous. This is a multiple called the Curbside Object Status Tag, and it's designed to facilitate the smooth operation of the informal sidewalk gift economy. So that's a fancy way of saying trash picking. The practice of leaving useful but undesired objects on the street is very common in my neighborhood. I think all communities have a version of this. If you live in an apartment, maybe leaving it in the lobby of an apartment. But there's an inefficiency in the system. People often drag home objects that they then learn don't work properly, or they don't pick them up because they're worried they're not going to work. So this tag addresses that problem. I distributed these tags to strangers and friends, and a stranger ended up with this tag and then shared the photo with me. So they used it on a little mini fridge. Here's a close-up of the tag. You can see that they indicated that the fan runs, but it doesn't cool. So it's like it's broken. But it's also clean. Apparently, this was taken from the street within an hour of being put out. Probably, I suspect, by someone who's interested in the copper inside. But the point is, we saved the world from someone dragging that thing home and being disappointed to learn that it didn't work. Here's a tag on some pizza trays left out. And not only were the trays in good condition, I don't know if you can read that, it says, use a little oil so the pizza dough doesn't stick to the pan. So that Good Samaritan also left a little tip of how to use the trays. Since 2008, I've been creating collages with discarded patterned security envelopes. Those are the envelopes that I'm sure you all noticed that mail private documents. I started working with the material when I had an office job, and as I opened the mail every day, I noted the wide variety of patterns that the envelopes came in. So I saw the material as an abundant free art supply that could be diverted from the waste stream. Security envelopes are used to hide sensitive documents like bills, invoices, statements, checks, and the secrets contained within these envelopes form the dull bureaucratic infrastructure of life, that's how I see them. So I created images that echoed the envelope's intended use as a camouflage for documents. The envelopes are meant to hide the documents so you can't see what's in them. And here I started by creating scenes that sort of echoed that use. So here it's sort of a dense forest floor scene. This is actually a more recent piece, but it illustrates what I was getting at. Just gonna. Here's another scene, dense with plant life, also made solely with those envelopes. In 2009, I created a body of these collages that show like frenetic plant life disrupting a human-imposed order. So, I have a lot of plants and vines and funguses sort of pushing out right angles, boxes, that sort of suggesting, they're coming out of rooms. This was at the beginning of the recession when I was making these, so I was much inspired by what was going on, as well as my own experiences. I had been laid off from the job that I just referred to, as my friends were being laid off. So I thought the security envelope was a perfect material to sort of like talk about those feelings, because they evoke a lot of like boring things, but a lot of stuff that we have neutral or negative associations with, like bureaucracy, bills, bad news often comes in these. So I'm still inspired by the frustrations that people feel towards financial institutions and the government agencies meant to regulate them. But my recent images, this is from this year, I'm sort of going more towards creating dystopian narratives and sort of trying to offer a moment of catharsis with them. So these images depict the natural environment, sort of rejecting current earthly circumstances. I'm out of here. So in this image, an entire forest is like orchestrating a location swap with another forest from the sky. These collages represent a fantasy in which the material of the reliable disappointments in life are transformed into a means of escape. So some of the collages show like mass evacuations of plant life, like this one, where the trees are flying away. This is leaves leaving. And this is grass graying. In this piece, I don't think of the grass as just dying, because dying grass turns brown and yellow, but of draining itself of all color and life and soul entirely, which I think is much worse. And this is live gloriously. I sometimes use the marketing phrases from credit card authors. I must have excellent credit because I get a lot of those. So in this image, a body of water is breaking apart into a rainbow as it sort of pulls itself into the sky, again, to evacuate. All right, this is the final slide of my work, my own work that I'm going to show you today. It's a large installation, just gives you an idea of how big I can work with these. Okay, so enough about me. I'm now going to be talking about how artists and creators use digital tools to assist in their practice. So does anyone watch Silicon Valley here? Oh, yay. Well, you all have to. It's a hilarious show. Anyway, this is how often I feel when sort of negotiating this world and figuring out which tool to use. There's just so many out there, as you all know, and as indicated by the list that you helped to generate. So again, I do come from the world of visual art, as you know. So a lot of the language and examples I'm using are going to come from that world. But again, it can be, what I'm talking about can be applied to all creative disciplines and to even further disciplines beyond that. So this first part, I'm going to talk mainly about the artist's or the creative person's web presence. All right, so as you know, the internet is contemporary culture's primary means for communication and disseminating information. So having an online presence is essential for artists. The truth is that most people will only experience an artist's work through a screen, or in the case of musicians, through headphones. It's realistically, how many people are going to physically come to your studio and look at your art, or come to a gallery and see your art? Most people on the planet will access your work through the screen. So this is your typical audience member. So artists need to be very deliberate and thoughtful about how they represent themselves online. I think they need at least one, hopefully more, online venues where their work is showcased. So I'm talking websites, social media, blogs, or like portfolio sharing sites. So I recall as few as 10 years ago, it wasn't at all common for individual visual artists to even have websites. It was mainly sort of hotshot artists with gallery representation who had a web presence, but that was only through their galleries or through museums or through big media outlets. So the downside to that is that artists couldn't control their message. They were always, just had images on someone else's site. And then also there was the cost of creating a website back then was sort of prohibitive for a lot of artists. So a lot of people certainly made their own. I did, and it resulted in a lot of terrible, terrible sites that didn't work. Mostly, though, people just didn't have them. So now, though, there's no excuse with the proliferation of, well, first of all, more people are just coding themselves, but also like WordPress.org, WordPress.com, Squarespace, other people's pixels. There's so many resources out there that are almost free or low cost. So there's no excuse for any creative person not to have a site. So this is the website for the Dufala brothers. I think I said that right. I think it's an example of a great site. I love it because it's visually uncluttered. And the artwork isn't overwhelmed by the rest of the content, the navigation. I think good sites should provide quality representation of the work, whatever that work is. So, like I mentioned, this is how I've never seen these guys work in real life, but I love their work. And that's probably, well, the work is cool, but also they use, they have really great images of the work. So they either hire a photographer, a pro to take pictures of their work, or they do a Skillshare, or they got great pictures. That's important. So this site illustrates, what I'm talking about. Simple design doesn't detract from the work. Here's another one I love, Maya Hayek. I think she does amazing work, but also, the site itself is visually uncluttered. So you can spend time sort of enjoying the work rather than figuring out navigation or just being distracted by too many bells and whistles. I think the site, even though Maya does very playful work, as you can see, the site is the tone of the site is very professional and clean, and she doesn't have any garbage like banner advertising or visitor counts. I have no problem saying do not have those on sites, especially visitor counts that are just sad. If you have 120 visitors, no need to promote that. Here's another great one. This is the website of a creative director and artist, G. Lee. Another feature that I like is where you can very clearly find contact information, and a pet peeve of mine are contact forms, so that's more personal. Good sites should be updated fairly regularly. And I also prefer sites with a sort of a tighter selection of artist work rather than a deluge of work. So, even if you're a writer, musician, if you're showcasing just like 10 of your best pieces rather than 10 of your best pieces and 20 of your mediocre stuff and another 10 of your really crappy stuff, it's sort of better for a tighter selection. That way people think you're a genius instead of thinking that creators are just like us. This one gets a little fancier, but I still love it. I still think it's very clear. And Mal, I don't know if ever since The Simpsons, I want to call her last name Crabapple, but I think it's Crabapple. Fairly well-known illustrator. See, I think hers gets a little fancy. She's got a headshot, which isn't common in visual artist sites, but she sort of bridges that territory between visual art, illustration, and even writing. She does a lot of editorial work. So, like the traditional art world is very slow. It's very slow moving and slow to adopt aspects like headshots that, like the rest of the world, think are completely normal and acceptable. So there's also a strategy of websites with a bit of like personality and sites that reflect the artist's brand rather than the product itself. So, or to make the website itself a piece of art. So this is an opening page to the Italian street artist Blue. He's the one who had his big, I'm sure you've heard of him. He did the big wall piece on the LA museum that got whitewashed within a day, I think, last year. So this is a concept site, and the concept is that you're peering into the artist's notebook. So, I'm showing, I think it's really gimmicky, and I think it's hard to do successfully, but I'm showing it to you because I think this artist does, but I also suspect he's got a ton of money to hire some pretty nifty designers to help him out. It's, you're supposed to have the sensation of like flipping through the book. So this is the website of artist Steve Lampert, and his site's actually pretty straightforward, but he does something really cool with his 404 page. So that's the page, like the error page that all websites have. Like 404, this page does not exist. And sometimes they're incredibly, sometimes it's just a white page. And then sometimes it's just oops, you've come to the wrong place. But this guy's done something really interesting. So, oops. How do I? Oh, here we go. Okay.
Cursor will be on your desktop, is there?
Oh.
So you gotta find. There we go. Here we go.
Mm-hmm. Wait, where are you going? Oh, here.
No, and
Oh.
Hey. Yeah. How's it going? No, it's a 404 page, right? I feel lost. No, totally. I'm not pointing fingers. I mean, there might have been some here before, but it's kind of it. All there is. So, yeah. You know how to use the search. Yeah, you can find a way out of here. Cool. Yeah, so, I mean, this is it. I mean, there's not really much else to see. You're totally welcome to hang out as long as you want and everything. I don't care, but yeah. Just forgot my phone, so not really hanging out or anything. Probably just gonna take off.
It goes on like this for like 10 minutes. I won't subject you to the whole thing.
I don't really know what else to tell you. I mean, kind of just what it is. So, guess I'm just gonna split. But yeah, it's totally cool. I mean, if you wanna, whatever, just hang out as long as you want. But
Okay, have you had enough?
whatever. Yeah. So.
I love that because I think it's hilarious. First of all, I've met this guy, and that is his personality. He is incredibly awkward, really smart, creative, funny guy. But all right, Jesse, I might need your help getting back to Command Tab, and then
that is
Yep, no, that's good, great. Right, so Steve is also he works a lot with technology. So this is sort of an art piece. It's obviously funny and irreverent and a bit stupid. And what I love about it is that it's a secret. You know, most times you can visit someone's website, you get to where you want to go, and it's very rare that you actually encounter four pages. You know, I don't know, 1 in 100 websites that you visit. So this is a secret that most people don't know about. I mean, he did promote it. He wrote a little blog post and got kind of circulated around, turned into a bit of a meme. But anyway, I'm illustrating. Let me back up. His actual website is more in keeping with the other ones I was showing you. You know, clean design, good quality photos, nothing distracting, no banners. But this is just sort of a cute thing he's got, and I really appreciate it as a viewer. So now I'm going to do something that like people with microphones always do, and I'm going to contradict everything I just said. So this is the website of the musician Empress of. I saw her in, she opened for a band I was seeing in Brooklyn. So I loved her set, and I was like, oh, I want to know more about this artist. So, you know, looked her up, and then I found this, and I was like, what is this? It's completely confusing. It makes no sense. You know, it's a Craigslist. Like, what? I couldn't, you know, where's the music, which is what I want. And then do I have the... So I was like, oh, SoundCloud, that's a music thing, so these must be songs, right? Yeah. Wrong. She just has crazy... And when you click on what look like songs, you just get crazy pictures that aren't related to each other and are just frustrating. But for me, they just sucked me in even further. and gifts. It was just crazy. So I eventually did find her SoundCloud account. I think I just Googled it. And I really don't know what to make of this, but I'm showing it to you because I think she broke every rule about making a rational, pleasing, professional website that well demonstrates her content. I mean, I couldn't even find her content, yet for some reason I love it. I've shared it with some people, and now I'm showing you all of it. And you should listen to her music if you can find it. So there you go. So you can throw everything I've just said out the window and just make a website with crazy, insane things that make no sense. Okay. So that's a good way to segue into the idea or the notion of the artist brand. Like Empress of, she had that insane website, but she was also a very geeky performer. She had a band, but she also was doing sort of laptopy music. She didn't look at the audience once. She sort of dressed like a teenager, and she had a very awkward sort of stage presence that I found very appealing. And her website kind of makes sense in that context. Maybe I'm giving her more credit. I don't know. So by brand, I mean sort of the aesthetics and value that an artist or creative person wants to put forth into the world. So if the artist is going to use social media to help promote their practice, they need to be deliberate about it, about what kinds of information they're going to share with that world. So this is Stan from South Park, and he literally got sucked into Facebook, Electron, and he had to battle his profile because his profile basically got away from him. Now, not in the same way that I'm talking about. He actually collected, 20,000 friends or something. But I'm just showing the slide to show you, don't let your profile get away from you. So often a creative person's brand is an offshoot of their actual personality. And if that's the case, they can get away with having social media accounts where they fluidly discuss art, inspiration, musings, and observations. But sometimes it's necessary to split those personalities. I think especially, if an artist worships Satan or takes photos of feet in their spare time. If that's you, by the way, talk to me after class. So another reason why for artists to have a personal page and a professional page is so that they can share sort of the really personal day-to-day minutiae that they want to genuinely share with their friends and family, like baby photos and pet photos. But that stuff isn't appropriate to be sharing with collectors and curators and journalists and even students researching them. You do not want to expose your fans or professional, possibly professional contacts or to diaper mishaps or nap victories. So this is Zoe Cohen. She's a Philadelphia-based artist. And when she started having kids, her Facebook feed started looking like this. I won the at-home with 2 kids, 1 sick lottery. They both napped for an hour at the same time. Kill me. No. So not allowed. Time for Zoe to start a professional artist Facebook page. And she did. So, it's hard to really show Facebook pages in the screen, but, basically it's mostly it's all her art stuff, or 90% art stuff, and then 10% that sort of relates to her practice, that sort of inspires her, that's not baby related. And I guess people need to be their own judges of what is appropriate. If you are a portrait artist and you paint pictures of babies, then maybe talking about babies is, your own baby is fine. But again, that's why artists need to figure out the brand, like what they're trying to put forth in the world. And just as an aside, Facebook is great for promoting events. Even if you have a gallery artist promote their own events through Facebook. It's just a great way to get the message out there. So this is a monthly poetry reading. Okay, Instagram. So many of you love Instagram. Ooh. So do I. This is the artist Wolfbat, known as Dennis McNett. He's a printmaker and installation artist. And he's very well known for his sort of punk rock woodcuts. They get humongous. He's very prolific and uploads a lot of images of his process and final products to his Instagram account. He occasionally uploads personal stuff, but I'd say it's 80% professional. You can see he's got many devoted followers. He's got a huge fan base. And, the Instagram's a great way for him to be sharing on a like daily level his work with his fan base, because realistically his fan base aren't going to be, logging into his web or looking at his website every day. This is the kind of thing he posts. Here's a process photo of him working on a woodcut plate. Here's one of his prints. It's a cool sculpture he's made, all of prints. Shanti is another artist who uses Instagram, I believe, very effectively. She's only got a few followers. She's sort of new at this. But I think she's another artist who does an excellent job of really, showing the work on a, daily or weekly basis, and also showing sort of the stuff that inspires her, that really informs the work. So we get a better idea of who Shanti is as a person, but specifically how it informs her art practice. Like if Shanti worships Satan, you wouldn't know from her Instagram. I mean, she might, but she knows to keep that under wraps. Twitter's another platform that creative folks use. So this is the Twitter profile of new media artist Jeremy Bailey. He tweets mostly about his art career and maybe 10% personal stuff. But I think the personal stuff is always sort of slightly related to his practice. So recently he tweeted about he got a little drone as a birthday present, and was tinkering with a drone, and that was pretty cool. Another great platform you all know about, or many of you do, is Tumblr, of course. So Printeresting is a collection of printmakers, and they publish interesting print-related stuff. And this is a way for them to be kind of connected to their fans, and it sort of shows the world that we don't just make prints, but we're genuinely interested in them. And they've sort of grown this little online community. Blogging is another way for people to be in touch if you're more cerebral or wordy. All right, that's all I'm going to say on that topic. So now I'm going to talk about inspiration, remixing, and stealing. So as you know, it's really easy to grab content off the internet. You can use screen grabs, right-clicking, copying, pasting. Like I lifted a whole bunch of images for this lecture, but there's this thing called copyright, which protects the content creator from people stealing their content. So how do you know if you've downloaded an image that you want to use if you are, like, let's say, for a birthday party invitation, whether you're being inspired or if you're just plain stealing? So there's several provisions out there, and one of them is called fair use. And fair use allows for people to use portions of copyrighted material for purposes of commentary, criticism, parody, and education. So, for instance, I stole a bunch of images for this lecture, and I don't care because this is educational, hopefully, in theory. Yeah. So fair use is a legal principle based on the belief that the public benefits if there's provisions allowing for this type of activity. An example of fair use are works that, or examples of fair use are works that incorporate the original to create a parody, like segments from The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And then most of you will recognize this image by artist Shepard Fairey. So it's the iconic image that represented Obama's 2008 election campaign. But did you know that Shepard Fairey, like many artists, appropriated a photograph of Obama to create the image? So this is the original photograph that the poster was based on. It was shot by an Associated Press photographer, Manny Garcia. So the AP sued Shepard Fairey for breach of copyright because he didn't get the permission to use this image. Shepard Fairey's defense was fair use. So court decisions regarding fair use are made case by case and are based on subjective factors. So it's hard to know how a situation will turn out in advance. So factors that are considered are whether the material has been helped to create something new, or has it been merely copied. The amount of the portion taken is considered, and the effect of use upon the potential market of the original creator. So in this case, Shepard Fairey and the Associated Press settled out of court, so we'll never know who would have actually won that case. So it sounds scary, but I'm bringing this up because many of us use appropriated content. I do it a lot. For instance, my little brown barf bag, and the source images that I use in the ATM machines. I think I'm protected under fair use. My own personal guiding principles are: am I making something new? Am I using a portion of someone's work? Am I depriving someone else of making money off of their original? Okay, so now it's clicker time.
Never seen it so large. Today's iClicker question responds directly to this fair use question, and what I'd actually like, so let's first of all bring it up. We thought it would be interesting because this case was never decided, and because fair use has this subjective element, I mean, again, it's case by case, and we have to sort out these complicated issues. We thought it would be interesting to see what you thought. But before, we'll go back to this dreadful nightmare of yours. Can a volunteer from Group 7 who's taking notes in 1 second here, could you just review for us Sarah's personal principles? I'm assuming you wrote that one down. What are the 3 things that she thinks about when trying to determine if something is fair use? Because this is your question, which is simply, do you think that this is fair use, or is it Fairey's abuse? Now, I didn't make that up. I stole that from the internet. That is not fair use. Actually, I don't attribute that to a quote.
This is educational.
This is educational, so it's okay. That is, do you think that Shepard Fairey's poster on the left is fair use of Manny Garcia's photograph on the right? And actually, if you read into this, it gets really complicated. Like, there's multiple versions of the image, and then Shepard Fairey lies, and I mean, there's other reasons why perhaps Shepard Fairey settles out of court. He ultimately pays a fine for lying in court, and various other. It's a really interesting story, well worth reviewing. But the question is simple. So, Group 7, do you have those 3 points for us?
Something like, am I making something new, or?
That's one, yeah.
Or am I using someone else's? Am I taking money away from someone else's?
Okay, so yeah, am I depriving somebody of their ability? So Manny Garcia takes a photograph. He wants to make money from the photograph. Are we depriving Manny Garcia? Am I making something new out of the original? And then what was the third one?
It's proportion. How much am I using of the original image?
Right, and so the likeness is clear. Different color tie, same facial expression. Okay, so let's actually bring up the iClicker thing. We will answer the question. Here's the little thing, and get out your iClickers. 35, 50, 70, 100.
Wait, so what's happening?
So everybody is voting. They're answering either A or B.
Oh, okay. All right.
105. We've got. I usually give you guys 30 seconds. Maybe that's too much. We're only giving you 25 seconds. 105. 105. Sometimes somebody comes in at the wire every time. Okay, 105 is our head count for today. And then I've never done this before, but in principle, oh yeah, there it is. Okay,
We can see.
we can see the results chart, which we've never done in real time. There you go. So 84% of you think this is fair use, and Sarah and I were talking about this morning, and Sarah thinks that as well.
I think so too.
That this is a fair use. And so we maybe in the question period we can hear from some of the people that think it's not fair use and get your opinion on that. But we'll see if there's time. And that is your iClicker diversion for today.
That was really fun. Okay, thank you for participating in that. Oop. All right, so there's also something called, oh, someone just left after the clicker.
Do you have a question? My new habit is to ask. I might think of another question.
All right, I'm not taking it personally. Okay, so there's another thing called public domain, and that's content whose intellectual property rights have either expired or been relinquished. So works in the public domain cannot be privately owned and are available for public use. So this is the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. She is in the public domain. So you can use her and mash her up into whatever creations you want. In most countries, the copyright term is based on the life of the content creator, or their death, rather, extends up to 50 to 7 years beyond that person's death. In the US, it's 70 years. Now, there's cases where copyright's extended, so you can't always use the 7 years plus death, or the death plus 7 years formula. You want to research, but that's sort of a broad rule. I'm really simplifying this topic, but the point is that you know that public domain exists. It's very cool. I think it's good for culture. Government products are also in the public domain. So all those really amazing NASA photographs from the Hubble telescope, the little Spirit, the rovers, are in the public domain. So go ahead, use them. So another way to legitimately use or appropriate other people's content without getting their permission in advance is to seek out content with a Creative Commons license. So Creative Commons is a copyright license that enables the sharing and use of creativity and knowledge. It's not an alternative to copyright. It sort of works in conjunction with copyright. It provides a standardized way to give the public permission to use and share work with certain conditions that the creator decides. So by default, all creative work is automatically copyrighted, but the Creative Commons license lets people change the terms from the default of all rights reserved to some rights reserved. And the beauty of Creative Commons is that you don't need to ask for permission when you want to use content with this license, as long as you follow the rules that the creator dictates. That's not to say that you can't contact the creator and say, I want to use your stuff, or I want to buy, I want to pay you to use your stuff, and I don't want to have the burdens of the Creative Commons license. That's fine. So, for instance, if you find a work with the above license, you can use an image if you give appropriate credit, use the material for non-commercial purposes, and you must distribute the work that you produce under the same license. And the Creative Commons licenses, there's different varieties, so there you can find content that does allow for commercial use. So how do you find work that has a Creative Commons license? On the Creative Commons website, you can search using their nifty search tool, where you can enter a search term and find content. So let's say you want to host a benefit party, and you'd like a picture of a piñata for the invitation. You can visit the site, type in piñata, and choose which service you want to mine for the Creative Commons piñata. image. So here's a bunch of images you could use for that invitation. And there's far more. But, I think that one up there is a good one. So you wouldn't need to ask the creator to use the image as long as you followed their terms, whatever those terms would be, and you would know it would be, it's presented along with the image. So in this case, let's say as long as you credit them and you didn't violate whatever the terms of the license were. So Creative Commons is still relatively new, but it's gaining in popularity, and we're finding more and more people are jumping on the bandwagon with it. And the fact, that like Flickr is involved and YouTube, I think it's, I don't know, I want everyone to know about it, and I want everyone to use it if it's for them. I think we'll see more and more people using it. So you can also for the content that you create, you can also attribute a Creative Commons license if you like. You don't need to just be mining other people's stuff. And this, at their website, they'll generate code for you to embed on your website if you have one, along with the content that you deem that you want to license in the Creative Commons. So it's sort of a selfless act. I think it's just one of these ways that we can make the internet a better place. All right, and that concludes that section. So now I'm going to talk about some of the tools that you helped to crowdsource. Thank you so much for participating in that exercise. So as you know, all your comments are on that website, and you can all sort of check it out. And I suggest that you check out what your fellow classmates have placed in there. I've chosen a whole bunch, so some of them will be relevant to you, some of them won't, but I think they're cool. Okay, so this is one that I suggested, the Lorem Ipsum tool, and this is a dummy text generator, and it produces paragraphs of scrambled Latin. It's an incredibly simple tool, but really useful if you're laying out text, but you don't want, and you need content to lay out the text, but you don't want it to be distracting, or you don't want to be copying and pasting like newspaper articles. So here we go. This is an article I've written or will write, laid out the content, and put on some Lorem Ipsum. So, I'm just playing around with font size and what font do I want to use and how wide do I want my margins and my columns to be. There's also there's dozens of really stupid generators. So this is Cupcake Ipsum. And this is Hipster Ipsum. I mean, there's so many of these. They're really stupid. I actually think they're dumb because they are distracting, and the point is not to be distracted by it, but they're hilarious. Okay, so OpenOffice, many of you suggested this. I think everyone needs to know about this. It's an open source office software used for word processing, spreadsheets, and presentations. You can think of it as an alternative to Microsoft Office. I don't know what your situation is here. Many of you maybe have as student licensed software, but eventually you'll be torn off the teat and you'll have to buy your own software, and you'll be amazed at how much Microsoft Office costs if you haven't stolen it. So OpenOffice is good. I used it for a while. Oh, some of you also suggested Kingsoft, which I've never used, but also free. I don't think it's open source because it's free, but they also have a paid version if you want to unlock premium features. Here's GIMP. It's a free open source image editing software similar to Photoshop. And again, if you can get your hands on Photoshop, amazing. It's expensive though if you're going to try to doing it legitimately. So there was a while when I was using GIMP as well. It's not exactly the same, but if you need, if you can't afford Photoshop, here you go. It's also open source, so I think by using software like this, you're sort of helping the world. Font Squirrel. This is amazing. You all have to know about this site. I don't care if you're a designer or not. Everyone needs to be aware of good fonts, and we will rid the world of Comic Sans. So this is a source of free and low-cost, high-quality fonts. It's a curated site. Everyone needs to think about typography. Make a GIF. So this is an online GIF maker, and it supports so many different ways to make a GIF. Here's another one. This is a good one because you don't need to register. You can just upload images and make your GIF. And I made one of me. This is me making a collage, a little one. Yay. And then just as an aside, I want to show you some sort of artful GIFs because they don't always need to be of like turkeys twerking. There can be really, I think this is a really emerging art form. I mean, these have been around for a bunch of years, but it's nice to take a moment and just enjoy a lovely, lovely one. Here's another one that is just awesome. I don't know what programs these folks used to make these last two ones, but you can make nice GIFs. Oops, how did that get in there? I'll just let you sit with that for a while. Okay, sorry about that. All right, subtle patterns. Mainly for designers, but so many people are writing their own blogs and having your own promotional websites. Everyone should know about this one too. So it is it just gives you subtle patterns and for free for download. And the creator's like, I'm sick and tired of seeing disgusting websites, and I want to help the world create nicer looking sites. So huge variety of subtle patterns on this one. I mean, hundreds. Another example of someone making the internet a better place. Here's Footage Island. This is a YouTube channel devoted entirely to providing free sort of stock videos, kind of like Shutterstock, but it's like time-based and mostly computer-generated, but really cool. I don't know if we have any videographers in here. HD green screen, kind of similar type of thing. I think there's a lot of sites like this. You should just know that these things are out there. Okay, this is one I didn't know about. Kaleidoscope. I was just so happy to learn that this exists. I don't know, it's kind of expensive for me, but I might bite the bullet. So it appears as this helps you spot differences between folders that look identical. If we make copies of folders and there might be differences in them or images. So this sort of helps you detect changes and then lets you merge to the best one that you want. My computer's a mess, so this would be really cool. Error display, another one that one of you suggested. Really neat. You can turn your iPad into an external screen. This is wild. Yeah, very cool. And here it is in action. I just got this off Flickr. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, I'm almost done. This is self-control. I just learned about this yesterday. All right. So it's an application that forces you to avoid distracting websites when you're working on your computer. So you tell it which sites to block and how long to block them for. And you cannot reverse the process even by turning your computer off or uninstalling the program. I need this. So this is my kryptonite. I love these things. The whole nailed it meme. But with self-control, no. All right. So, the end.
Everyone, before we ask questions, I just want to thank Sarah for bringing up these exceptionally important topics that I essentially think all classes in digital media should address at some point. Copyright. I mean, the software that we've never seen before that we should all know about. The copyright thing is particularly important. I mean, you need to take the time as creators of content to understand these issues. And here's how it's going to go down for you. You're all students. You make stuff. Nobody cares. It's true. Nobody cares. Legally, nobody cares because you're students. You're basically allowed to do whatever you want. You mess around. It's great. You're lucky. We're lucky the world is like that. And then at some point in that awkward period between graduating and maybe like making a living, which can take many years depending on your trajectory, you will start making things, and someone will bust you for something you've done, and it's awkward because you're not a bad person and you're not trying to steal things. You just kind of did it as a student, and it happens. So I mean, two brief anecdotes. David Finillian's video, which is now up on the website, contains copyrighted content, and the internet is very sophisticated at this point, and it immediately is tagged as copyrighted. Like YouTube told me as soon as I put it up that this video contains, because in his own slideshow he has Hitchcock's film. Right? I mean that's new too. I mean it's only been a couple of years since the internet. I say the internet like it's monolithic. The digital rights management systems within the internet are able to find those things immediately. Now I haven't gotten what's called a takedown notice yet, but I have for other things I've done for students, and I can go back and say actually no, this is for educational use, and I have a way of undoing that. But it will happen to you. And so just be aware of it and be careful because you will at some point need to figure out how to, and so knowing how to figure out if you're allowed to do something is important. And it is a gray area, so it can be a bit complicated. On that note, does this group, do we have some questions? Josh?
Well, let's just say I made a cartoon character, and I made this cartoon character based on several other popular cartoon characters. But at the same time, I want to inspire the famous animators that made these certain cartoon characters. Do you think it's a fair use?
Ooh, to me, that sounds like fair use. But sort of to elaborate on what Jesse just said, a lot of these issues are hazy and battled out in the courts, but I would think that's okay. But this is sort of a personal reason. I mean, we got to be able to be inspired by each other and build upon each other's work. And you're not copying in whole other characters. It sounds like you're making a new character out of a whole bunch of other, and then probably adding some of your own flair.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's fair use.
And Josh, unfortunately, here's the sad reality of that situation: is that you make a character, you put it up on your website, Disney sees it. Disney's lawyers just send you a takedown notice regardless.
Yeah.
They don't actually care about the law.
Yeah.
They just want to protect their property. You have no ability to fight Disney on any claim, until such times you have $100 million at your disposal, and so you lose. I mean, that's the thing that's unfortunate is that we have these laws, we have these moral ideas about what's right, and then we have what actually happens.
He loses, but he gets a ton of press.
And then maybe you win. So that's the
Yeah. So in a way, you win. Yeah.
you need a spin doctor.
It's true, and what Jesse said is really important. A lot of these, the huge, the legal team from these big media companies will just, sue regardless of the merit of the case because they know you'll just drown. But hopefully you'll get some good press, and then maybe you'll get a volunteer lawyer help you out. This is, if this happens to you, amazing. That's a good problem to have, I think. It means you're getting a lot of attention. Yeah. Thanks.
Other questions?
I'm actually more interested in your work than your digital resources. You do a lot of collage type work. Does your inspiration come more from the medium that you see something and it inspires you to create a work out of that medium, or do you come up with an idea and then find a medium to work with it?
In this case, so in the case of the discarded security envelopes, the medium came first. And it was, here's these interesting, disposable, cheap, offset lithography prints. That's what they are. They're cheap commercial prints that are disposed of. There's so many of them. They're very loaded. It's a very loaded material. So so what can what am I creating that makes sense with this material? So for instance, the camouflagey scenes, I'm trying to make the connection between the original use of the material, and then those more sort of cathartic, fantastical scenes. That's more of a psychological. What do we feel when we get a bill that we can't pay? We would just want to escape. So yeah, it's the material first, and then the idea. Yeah, I wouldn't do a portrait of the Mona Lisa with this stuff.
If I made a free commercial, but the photo is not mine, I take from other place. It's free commercial, but I don't make money from them, but other people make money from it. Do I violate the?
Huh. Well, if you were let's keep it broad. Well, no, I'll ask you specifically. So you were hired to make a commercial?
No.
Oh.
I'm not hired, but I make the commercial for free.
Okay.
And other people I don't know, they make money from.
Oh, you mean other? So it wasn't a commission. It's not a commission commercial. You just make a commercial to do it. Okay.
This actually happened. This sounds like did you make one for class or something?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering. So why are you making the commercial for free? For fun?
Yeah, just.
Okay, so
Interesting. You want to make a commercial for me? Okay. I promise I won't sue you. So I'm making a commercial for someone. Now, this is a good noodle scratcher. It's such a bizarre situation. Okay, so you stole someone else's photo.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the commercial for?
Just for having fun, make some comedian.
Oh, guys, I think this is more of a philosophical discussion that we could all have.
should we have a poll?
Let's.
Well, we should acknowledge that Sarah's expertise is not legal specifically, but it's an interesting issue to bring up generally. Do we have questions that? I'm not opposed to questions to ask Sarah. What does Sarah think of specific legal issues? But they're maybe not pertinent to her expertise exactly.
Yeah, you should not listen to my advice. You should do your own research on that one. But it's an interesting question to think about. Hi.
Hi. So there are a lot of kind of art sites where they gather kind of groups of artists and they post up their work, kind of like DeviantArt.
Yeah.
So do you recommend sites like that? Because I know a lot of times you were saying you should have your own website.
Right. Well, actually, that kitten came from the kitten on the screen. Came from DeviantArt. And for those of you who don't know, DeviantArt is a portfolio site, and it attracts more. It's a free portfolio site that has an open submission policy, so anyone can make a username and start your own online portfolio. And it attracts more sort of designy crowd and fantasy crowd and anime and very, very technically well-made illustrations, what it tends to attract. And I was on that site, and I cannot believe how many My Little Pony fan art images I saw. I mean, this is something I want to research more. Anyway, my personal opinion is that I never want to discourage anyone from putting the work out there, and I guess it's people who are starting out definitely use it until you're more comfortable to break free. Having said that, I recently met an artist in Reno, and he is, I don't know, he must be a Reno hotshot. He seems to be. And so he's got a website, and even though he's in his, early 40s and seems to sell a lot of work, he's got his fan base is on DeviantArt, and so, but it works for him. So I guess you got to figure out sort of the brand of what you're trying to, of what the creator's trying to get out there. And does DeviantArt, does it make sense? Yes. My work doesn't make sense up there. I mean, that's sort of obvious, right? But yeah, I don't think it's a deal breaker. But I think it's a great place to build community, to sort of to get feedback on the work. It seemed like it's a very vibrant place that people are exchanging ideas, and the cartoon character mashups, I feel like would belong there, or you would find a bunch of like-minded individuals on a site like that.
And lest anybody not make the connection to their own life, I mean, you guys, we all have this burden of our personal brand. And so even those of you that are not in creative disciplines, when you go out in the world, I mean, literally the act of making a resume and handing it in for a job, and people then look you up, they want to look at your Facebook page, if they find a website for you, they might be impressed, they might not be, depends how good the website is. If you're an engineer and you participate in online communities about your discipline, then if you're an academic, there's this thing called academia.edu. There's always a venue for your world. So, and one of the hardest things to decide sometimes is what your world is. I mean, we were also just talking about this last night. Like, some of us don't, some of you, some of us, we don't necessarily have one thing that we do, and you actually kind of have to pick sometimes. What identity do I want to put forward for the public to see about me, depending on what your life is about, or what you want your life to be about. And often for you guys as students, it's kind of a projective thing. Like, what do I want my life to be about, and what do I want people to think I'm into, even if I'm not totally sure yet. And it can be good to try these things on too, because sometimes they really fit, and you're like, this is working great. I'm meeting all these people through this thing that I've done. Or sometimes you just like, oh, I actually don't like this stuff. And then you take that, the good news is it's all reversible.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I have one more question.
Sure.
Also, you kind of talked a lot about how a lot of other artists would hire other designers to help them with their sort of putting their digital media onto the web. Would you recommend becoming for artists this day and age to be more versed in these practices?
Yes, and not just artists, but everyone. I mean, the job market these days, so much is going to be requested of you all as far as your skill set. So the more versatile everyone is, the better. I mean, even if one of you makes models of molecules, and you need to have visual skills to present that work. And you're using online tools to make that work. So, but then back to hiring other people. There's so many. It's a good idea to make pals with other creative folks. So a photographer, you're crap at photography, or you only even have a point and shoot. Do a skill share or a trade. I'll give you a print. Will you photograph my work? That is so common. Or I'll give you a whole bunch of work. Will you make my website? Or make my website and I'll photograph your work. That happens a lot because artists are unless they're hotshot famous people, a lot of artists struggle financially. Actually, even the famous ones do. But one thing they do have often is a very sort of rich, tight-knit community to rely on. So, yes and no. I can take photos, but other people are far better than me. So, I have hired some people, and I've done also some trading to get some photos. So, mm-hmm.
So at the very beginning, you talked about how your work is focused on people's thoughts about financial institutions and finances and stuff. I mean, I'm one of the biology, chemistry field. I'm just always curious about you're promoting. You need to have a web presence, stuff like that. How does an artist gain financial support by putting their work up for free? I guess this is just something.
Oh, well, my work is for sale. So the pictures online are, low resolution images that, aren't really, they're not good to many people. And there's a certain amount of, sort of just promotion, people want to buy my work. They need to first look at it and see it and become interested in it. But again, most artists aren't in it for the money. You're in it because you have an idea, or you like the act of creating, or you want to bring beauty or ideas into the world. So why do we do it, or?
Oh no. I was just curious how people pay for it and stuff like that. So it's you're putting it up on social media, and you want to just click on it and say, oh, that's nice, and kind of
right. Oh yeah, I don't care. That's fine. Yeah, in my case. some photographers watermark their images. You often see that. I don't watermark my art. I mean, if someone wants to use my, one of my prints, like the envelope pieces, as a screensaver for the computer, amazing. But I'm not going to get into the world of selling like screensavers because again, they're low resolution images. But I have physical objects that can be purchased. Mm-hmm.
Guys, I don't send you guys things very often out of class, but yesterday, coincidentally, there's a nice New York Times article about art and the economy that I'm going to send you guys tomorrow before Thursday, just because it's a neat answer. Somebody's answer to your question. I don't think anybody actually knows exactly how artists make money. I mean, they know it's a struggle, and they also know that there's multiple models. People write books on this and do research. It's not a total unknown, but artists themselves make money so many different ways, and it's such a complicated thing in a way. Like for every artist that sells work, frequently, there are artists that sell like the things that sell are strange. So it's a very strange economy, basically, in its heart. And there are artists like me who are professors, and there are artists who are prolific and make lots of stuff. They sell, for very small amounts of money, and there are artists who make one thing per year, and they get grants for it. I mean, it's a really interesting part of, and frustrating, but also fascinating part of the economy.
I also feel like in all disciplines, there's a certain amount of, goodwill and, giving it away. I mean, even in your world, you may be asked to peer review an article. And I don't know if that's a paid gig. I'm kind of assuming not. I don't know. But so there's just a little bit of, giving a little bit out there.
I think one thing to be conscious of in your own lives is just thinking about, not necessarily insisting on getting paid for everything you do when you're young, but being conscious of how that works and not being taken advantage of for too long. I mean, that's the hard part when you're new at anything. You might be asked to do work for free to prove yourself, and there's there's a whole world of that out there in all fields. And sometimes you got to do it because you want to prove yourself, but you have to be careful about not doing that forever because you may never translate into anything. I think we have time for one more short question, or there is one yet.
Hi.
Do you happen to know that, if I upload a picture to Instagram,
Yep.
do I own it or does Facebook own it?
Oh my goodness, that is so interesting. I don't know. I heard recently that Facebook changed their terms. I mean, you of course own it, right? It's on your phone. You took it. But once the act of uploading, does Instagram now own it? I don't know, and maybe you guys need to talk about this in this class.
This might be a great topic for group, not to feed group 7 a topic, but actually looking into social media ownership questions would be great, because it does change and it is complicated, and certainly there's lots of conspiracy theories about, for example, if you delete yourself from Facebook, Facebook doesn't actually delete you, and is that even possible? So it would be a nice one to cover for your project.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not well versed in the minutiae of that, but that is an ever-expanding field and just too much for my little brain to know. Mm-hmm.
Thanks again, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much for these great questions and for making me feel so welcome.